Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Are we streaming, Brother Ali? Okay. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم توكلنا على رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا خاتم النبيين أبي القاسم محمد بن عبد الله اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين وصحبه الأخيار المنتجبين وعلى جميع الأنبياء والمرسلين. So inshallah, this is the third session of our Quran training for madrasa teachers generally, and some non-teachers as well. So today I felt like the makharij are so important that we're actually probably going to dedicate most of today's session to them, inshallah. I see that we have a lot less people attending today, which is unfortunate because this is really for the ones mostly who are not here. Yeah, some of the brothers.
The homework was that bad, is what you're saying.
Yes, the homework was. The homework is the homework. You know, it's supposed to verify whether you can say these properly or not. And inshallah, we can do some more practice today and give some hints that really kind of help you figure out how you're supposed to form your mouth or the different parts of your mouth in order for you to be able to say these letters properly. I will say this though, the important thing is practice. You can learn the letter perfectly, however many times, perfectly, say it perfectly. You know, you master it, you realize like, oh, this is where I'm supposed to put my tongue, this is where I'm supposed to, I'm supposed to block, I'm supposed to release air, I'm supposed to be blowing air, etc., etc. But if you're not practicing, it's not going to stick, and the next time you come to read it, you're going to read it in the way that you thought you knew how to read it before. So you're not going to let what you're going to learn stick unless you're practicing. So it's extremely essential to practice, and alhamdulillah, like literally 5 minutes of reading Quran a day with you consciously saying, I'm reading in order to focus on this letter, and I'm going to say it in this way every time I see it. 5 minutes, I promise you, not more than 5 minutes. You will be able to sustain what you learn. Right? But without those 5 minutes, if you're just going to take this session or the next couple of sessions and the last session and like feel like, oh, this is what I need, now I've mastered how to pronounce these letters, that's just not how it works. You know, this is obviously part of Allah's hikmah that this is not how it works, because He wants us to be in contact with the Quran. Assalamu alaikum, brother. Okay. So, first of all, before we get into the letters themselves, I just wanted to cover something very quickly that I had hoped to cover last time. It's very quick. Basically, if you have a harf mad, so as you see them here, waw maddiya, right here, a ya maddiya, or an alif. Keep in mind, the alif is always maddiya, right? There's no alif non-maddiya, right? So if you have an alif, a ya maddiya, or a waw maddiya, then when you see this madda on them, this sign right here, what is this called in English? Anybody know? I used to know. Tilde? Is that what it is?
It's the closest to tilde.
Wavy dash.
If you're talking,
Yeah.
you're talking about the one to the left of one is
This one right here.
the
highlighted.
The left of one on the keyboard is tilde. That is not on the keyboard.
Okay, yeah, so it's close enough to a tilde that we can just call it that, or a wavy dash will do, right? Whatever you want to call it, when you see this on a harf mad, you extend the haraka 4 times. So if you remember last time we talked about شو حاجي خليني أعلم بابا لو سمحتي شكرا أنا محل. Okay. So if you remember last time we said that every time you read, you have to keep in mind that you're reading at a certain speed, right? It's been narrated that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to read at 3 different speeds, and you know, you can determine the speed for yourself, inshallah. But what that means is that every time you read one letter, you're going to give it the exact amount of time, to the best of your ability, obviously, as any other letter, unless a rule tells you not to do that, tells you to give it more time, right? So every time we read, we're going to give, so speed. So there's going to be a unit that you determine. This is one of the most important things to do in Quran, right? Much of what tajweed, ilm tajweed is for you to figure out these speeds, right? Figure out like how long should I say this letter, how long should I say that letter, and why, right? So this is the unit. If you make this unit longer, then you have a slower reading, right? So if I'm reading, for example, this is just completely me making things up, right? But just imagine that like it's this long, right? The time I'm giving each letter. So I would say, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Okay? As opposed to, if I make it longer, I would say, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Okay? So the difference here is not anything except that I chose that I'm going to read slower the second time. So every letter, I gave it an exactly the same unit of time, right? The period of time I dedicated to each letter is supposed to be exactly the same unless a rule says extend this letter more, right? So unless a rule is introduced that tells me multiply by 2, multiply by 3, multiply by 4, multiply by 5, multiply by 6, right? The rules are the ones that tell you when to extend a certain letter, when to not extend a certain letter, right? A lot of people just kind of like think like, oh, like if I say it this way, it just sounds nice, right? That's not how it works if you want to be applying ilm tajweed properly, okay? So the rules themselves are going to tell you which letters and in what contexts you're going to extend and which ones are going to get the 1 unit of time that you have chosen for your reading, whatever that might be, okay?
Question here.
Yes.
So I know the tilde that you mentioned,
Yeah.
you have been seeing and practicing.
Yes.
Is you have to extend 1 unit.
No. The tilde, so any given letter, you extend 1 unit, right?
Yeah, but
The tilde, when you see it on a harf mad, means you extend 4. And that's the point. So when we see like harf mad or long vowels, so when you see one of these letters, so just keep in mind, we're talking about when these 2 letters come in the context of mad, okay? What we do when we see this sign above them is we take this speed that we have chosen and we multiply the speed by or whatever, we multiply the period of time. I'm sorry? Yes, 4 units. فاطمة انت هلا عم تضايقيني صرتي. Okay. So when you see a harf mad and it has a madda sign on it, you extend it 4 times. Okay? 4 times. So instead of saying awa, you would say awa. Okay? Actually, I'm sorry, that's a bad example. That's a hamza. Let's move on to dhalin, right? So with dhalin, this is very important because it affects the correctness of your salat or not, right? So just make sure that so the fiqh, as far as the muraja that I know, they just say you have to extend. Like, that like it doesn't matter that you have to extend it 4 or whatever. It's just as long as it's extended, Allah is okay with your reading in salat. But from an ilm tajweed perspective, at least as far as the reading, the qira'ah that they're following in this book, when you see it with a madda, you don't say wala dhalleen, dhalleen, right? You have to say wala dhalleen 4 times, right? Wala dhalleen, okay? Without that pause that I just made. Wala dhalleen, wala dhalleen, okay? 4. Yes, قُلْ يَا أَيُّهَا الْكَافِرُونَ 4 times, right? So here, ya is ya, and then alif next to it with the mad sign. So you would say, يَا أَيُّهَا الْكَافِرُونَ, okay?
The next question I have is,
Okay, we're going to keep the questions for later because we're really, backed up with a lot of the stuff and we're starting half an hour late, okay? So if you have questions, we can cover them later if that's okay. But please write them down so you don't forget them, okay? If you have questions exactly about what I'm teaching, that's different. But if you have theoretical questions about something else, we can talk about them later.
additional rules that you are teaching right
Yes.
now. You just mentioned still that. How many of these rules we have that we have to extend?
There's a lot. We'll cover them, don't worry. Yeah, the mudud is one of the biggest things in ilm al-tajweed, and it's a lot. So you have to kind of like sit down and process and memorize and practice, right? And eventually it becomes, I promise, it becomes second nature. You're reading and you don't even think about like, oh, this is this rule and I have to apply it. This is 4, this is 2, eventually if you read enough, inshallah, it becomes second nature. You're just reading and your mind, like when you drive a car, right? When you drive a car, first of all, there's a lot of conscious effort. You have to decide like, oh, I have to press this one, I have to press that one, I have to move the wheel, etc., right? Before you know it, because you're doing it repeatedly, right? Inshallah, with the Quran, you're doing it repeatedly. It becomes second nature. You don't even think about it and you're pressing the pedal, the correct pedal, inshallah. And you're moving exactly how much you're supposed to move the wheel to go this way or that way. Is it called the wheel? The wheel, right? Yeah, okay, yeah. Okay. All right, so when you see a harf mad and it has this sign on it, madda, we extend it 4 times. That was the last thing that I wanted to cover, that I had hoped to cover last class. Let me just get some napkins because this is not working out.
There you go.
Oh. Okay. Thank you. Just make sure you get this speed and that there's a unit that you're supposed to pick. Make sure to really understand that point because it's extremely essential. Okay. Okay, so moving on. We're going to cover some of these letters in more detail, like I said at the beginning, and inshallah we're going to give tips about how to say them correctly, right? This might be very basic for some, and it might be super difficult and extremely complicated for others, right? So for those for whom this is too easy, please just bear with me. Okay. So the hamza is a thin letter, and it comes from the bottom of the throat. Okay? The hamza is a thin letter. It comes from the bottom of the throat, along with the ayn, which comes a little bit above it, right? So or if you want to say it with this strategy that they use here is to precede it with a hamza as well, right? So you say and just try to put your hand here, right? And just feel where it's originating, okay? Let me just open this as well. Okay, so these are, so you have the oral cavity. Okay, so I'm just gonna, you're not allowed to laugh. If somebody knows how to draw and can do me a favor, so I'm not.
I think you have a volunteer.
Who? Fatima, yes. No, I don't think so. Okay. And then, thank you everyone for volunteering. بدك أنت؟ يلا تعي استنى أنت. خلص قربتي. ميسا. خلص ارسمي لي إياها إذا قد ما فيكي لأنه we can't project it on the screen for some reason. Okay, so Sister Maisa is going to try to do this better than I can. Okay.
Enough, but she can't succeed.
So there's two parts to the structures that we use in order to produce sound, right? There's the oral cavity, which is the mouth, and then the throat, okay? The mouth and then the throat, right? So in Arabic, we call these al-jawf, which is both of them. The oral cavity, all of it is called al-jawf. So the oral cavity is all of it. Mouth plus throat equals oral cavity. It's the whole thing, right? So because when we're saying harf al-hamza, because we're using both of them, we call this harf jawfi. Okay, because it's using the whole oral cavity, so we call it an oral cavity letter. Okay, just keep in mind that it originates here, and then nothing really much is going on except that you're opening your lips. Okay, you're not doing anything in your mouth. The mouth is not really functioning except that the opening of the mouth is being used to produce this sound, right? But you're not touching your tongue anywhere or anything like that. The tongue is on the bottom, and you just say okay? As opposed to, sure. Okay, so the a and the ha, okay, the a and the ha, sort of come from the same area, which is the farthest area of the throat. And then we have the ha and the a, middle of the throat. So ha, on the bottom here, ha, in the middle of the throat. If you can try these with me and put your hand here, I think it would help to kind of like determine what exactly is happening, right? So, you know what? خلاص Maisa.
Thank you.
If you missed the first wave of AI engineering in 2023, don't miss this one. Forward deployed engineering is becoming a serious AI career path because companies don't just.
The concept of makharij and صفات الحروف is the most fundamental side to study, especially to read the Quran of how to solidify. It refers is the characteristics that produce the sound.
Sister Maisa was trying to draw. Or Thank you. Thank you. That's very good. So, actually, let's just.
This channel has like tons of videos. It has everything.
It's amazing.
Teach and then more.
Yeah. So this is what I was trying to say earlier, right? That this area, this light green area, is the mouth, the open part of the mouth, right? And then this is the throat, the weird blue, right? And so together they're called the oral cavity or al-jawf. And then okay. So it's just that we have two books at the same time. It's a little bit hard to kind of follow. Okay. So the ayn is from the middle of the throat, whereas the hamza is a little bit below it. As opposed to okay? One thing I wanted to focus on today, inshallah, is to kind of like give a distinction between the two and give tricks as to how you can differentiate them from each other, okay? But generally speaking, we're going to start from when we cover them here. I guess I'll just say that then. Okay. So, at the extreme of the throat, and then in the middle of the throat. Okay. So let's try to say some of these letters, some of these words, right? Ain, 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 ain. Yeah. So one thing to just make sure that you are doing when you're doing this is that the vocal cords, when you say the have to be completely closed. Okay? So, it's the opening of them is the production of the sound. If you don't do that properly, you're going to say ain, 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 ain. You know, like it's not ain, right? It's very pointed. The sound is so if you don't open the vocal cord, if you don't close the vocal cords completely, the sound is going to be distributed. It's not going to be ain, just one point and it comes out. It's going to be distributed. So it's going to be ain, 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 okay? And it becomes this weird combination of alif and as well. And then some people introduce, just to mix it up, ain as well. I know some people who sometimes do that, right? Especially when there's a hamza and then a ayn right after it, right? Subhana rabbiyal right? So a lot of people will say Subhana rabbiyal a'la, right? You know, you're not sure, is it a ayn? Is it a hamza?
As long as that's the case, you're good. That's the key thing.
The hamza and alif sound is same.
Huh?
Hamza and alif.
So that's a very complicated question. The simple answer is that hamza, some people don't even consider, most people don't consider it a letter of its own, right? But the hamza is this sound, right? The alif is, it's a long vowel in the Arabic language, right? So it's just, it doesn't have this to it, right? So we talked about continuous and discontinuous sounds last class, right? So we said that a continuous sound is something that you can continue doing. So I can keep saying, right? That sound continuously is the alif.
Coming from here.
Yes, yes. So, but is not continuous. I can't extend the hamza, right? So in order for me to say that, I would have to say something discontinuous. And it's spent. I can repeat, I can say but it's not the same letter being extended over time. Okay? So that's the difference between them in terms of pronunciation.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Okay. If you have time, the best thing for you to do is to listen to these lectures, these YouTube videos, right? That's the best way to go about kind of mastering these letters. We don't have enough time to kind of like do that ourselves in here. I'm going to send them on the group, and I'll expect, inshallah, that anybody who's struggling with any of these letters to go to the specific video for that letter and try to figure out, how to say it properly. You're more than welcome to contact me as well, and we can try to work through it together. But in here, during this session, I want to go a little bit faster than watching 23 9-minute videos, right? Because we don't have that time. So that's why I kind of summarized what the brother is doing here. Okay. So let me just open the mouth. Okay. Okay. So we have 5 different structures. The nasal structure, right? Basically, this is the area that you want to be focused on. And a lot of letters have a feature that is going to involve nasality, or a sound coming out of your nose. And then we have the oral cavity, which is the empty space in your mouth, the empty space in your throat. And then we have the lips. Obviously, they're going to have a big part in forming a lot of the letters. And we have the lips, the lips and the tongue. I'm sorry. The lips, the tongue, the nose, the throat. Those are the 5 different areas. Okay, so when we're talking about huruf al-mad, alif, ya, waw, okay, the key is to not open your lips too much, or to not open them too little, okay? It's that wasat, right? The middle point between too much and too little. So let's just do some practice. I know people who say inne, and when you ask them, like, why are you saying it that way? Why isn't it inna? They say, I'm trying to avoid it being mufakhama. I'm trying to avoid it being inna, right? But there's a difference between inna, that's mufakhama, that's incorrect, right? And then inna, that's the correct one. And then inna, I'm not opening my lips enough. I'm not forming a big enough of an O to produce a proper alif, okay? So let's go through some of these examples. Allah, Allah. So here, the word Allah is mufakhama. And so the lam in here is mufakhama, right? The alif that we're producing is going to be mufakhama. So we say Allah, Allah. Okay? This is the only case where you're going to find a lam that is mufakhama. All other cases of lam are, so mufakhama means thick. That's the term that they use in this book. And then the other term is thinness, right? Muraqqaqa. So inna, anzalnahu, nahu, not ne, right? Na, if I wanted to do it mufakhama, I would say anzal na, na. Is that correct? That's incorrect, right? So inna anzal na, not na. Okay, so that's the difference. Na versus na. If you can see the difference in my lips opening. Sorry that you have to look at that. So anzal na, as opposed to, and I'm going to say it first without saying as opposed to, so that you can follow exactly how much more it opened. Anzal, the correct one first, and then mufakhama, which is incorrect, second. Anzal, na, correct. أنزل na na na. Okay, that's the level at which you're going too much. So let's all try to say it correct first. أنزلنا na. Louder, please. أنزلنا. Yes, okay. Generally speaking, what I'm able to hear is correct, right? As opposed to, let's say it incorrectly now. And do it mufakhama. Give it a thick sound, okay? أنزل na na. I don't hear anyone pretty much. So let's do it one more time, louder, a little bit louder. أنزل na na. Okay, yes, that is incorrect. Okay, I'm doing what the other guy did last class, which we were criticizing. But I think it is kind of, sometimes it's important for you to kind of distinguish between like, oh, this is what, when I do it this way, it's incorrect, right? As opposed to, again, when you do it, when you do thinness, but too much thinness, right? You would say, أنزل na na. Your lips are not open enough. أنزلناه. أنزلناه. Some people's lips are like weirdly formed, I'll say, or like, and not that there's something wrong with them, but they really struggle to open their lips or their mouth, or I don't know, it's something, right? So just keep in mind, yeah, the fact, the structure of their mouth is a little bit different. So they struggle to kind of like open their mouth. You tell them like 5 times open, 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 but still you find that like, yeah, they're either resistant because they're shy, or please don't be shy, right? I mean, this is Allah created this language so that you pronounce it properly. So there's nothing about like, you know, there shouldn't be any shyness involved in this, whether you're a female or a male, right? أنزلناه, okay? الرحمن man وما إلا, okay? حنفاء, okay? الصلاة الصلاة الزكاة. Okay. So with respect to the waw or wow, which is the see, like that's the Lebanese coming out of my mouth, unfortunately. So when we say al-waw al-maddiyya, okay, so waw can function as a harf mad, a long vowel in Arabic, and it can function as a letter in and of itself, right? A short vowel, in other words, right? So we're not gonna for now, we're not gonna worry about the waw that is not maddiya, the letter in and of itself, right? So waw al-maddiyya, it's about how you form your lips again. War ruh ruh. Okay, if you open your lips too much, you would say war ruh war ruh. You get closer to an English O. War ruh o. Okay, we don't want that, right? So you want to constrict your lips. You want to constrict or make the circle that you're forming with your lips smaller, so that you're hitting exactly the right waw, the waw that is the Arabic waw, the fasiha waw, right? War ruh. Okay, if I constrict it too much, this is what happens. War ruh. It has this kind of vagueness to it, right? It has this interference. War ruh. Okay, it's just too constricted, right? So again, you want to understand where your lips would be too constricted and then not constricted enough, and what is that middle ground that produces the correct letter. Okay? War ruh, incorrect, right? Because I'm not constricting my lips enough. War ruh, correct? No, still not correct? That was the correct one, right? War ruh, war ruh. Okay, that is the correct one. If we constrict it too much, it becomes war ruh. It has this it's not clear. It's not coming out clear enough because I'm not opening my lips properly. I'm not making the circle with my lips properly. So, war-ruh, if we can say it all together, war-ruh. Okay. Kafaru. Okay. That's umiru. Umiru. Liya'budu. Yeah, so I keep making these pauses. Please ignore them. Those are incorrect. I just wanted to kind of pause so that when we go into the do part, we're focused on which part to focus on. So I'll just do it properly. لِيَعْبُدُوا وَيُؤْتُوا. Okay. Now, with the ya, it's about that vague smile that we were talking about last time. So, Rahim. Okay. Or Ar-Rahim. If I don't open my mouth enough, right, it comes out Ar-Rahim. Okay? It doesn't have the proper properties, right? It's not proper. So Ar-Rahim. That's incorrect. I'm barely opening my mouth, right? So we want to install that vague smile so that the harf comes out properly. Ar-Rahim. So that whole area here is blowing out the air. If you constrict it too much and you say Ar-Rahim, you have wrong properties coming out. Okay? It's an incorrect letter. Ar-Rahim. That's the correct one. If I open too much, Ar-Rahim, there's a sort of vibration that the lips are doing when you're in the right position that you lose completely, because now the lips are not being affected by the air coming out because you open too much. Ar-Rahim, right? You lost properties of that letter, right? So you want to be, again, in the middle. You don't want to go open your lips wide. The smile should not be too wide, and the smile shouldn't be too constricted, okay? Ar-Rahim, okay? والمشركين منفكين okay. مخلصين. Okay, we have some sad issues, but we're focused on the ya right now. الدين. Okay, just make sure that when you're saying the noon, there's a ghunna that comes out with it. That's part of the noon. So something that's supposed to come out of your nose as well. Ad-deen. You will feel it as a vibration, like you'll feel the whole area kind of vibrate. Deen. وَيُقِيمُوا وَيُقِيمُوا. Yes.
Ad-din, just because it's ending with sukun the way you say it. But
Incorrect.
if it's not, we don't give the sound from here.
Yes, yes,
Close, right?
yes.
Yeah. Okay. Just because it's close. Yeah.
So the sukoon on the noon gives it a very pronounced nasal sound. Yes. All right. So let's try to follow some of these hints that he gives us. So the first two letters that he focuses on are the hamza and the ha. Hamza, ha. Hamza, ha. And they're supposed to be at the bottom of your throat, the farthest point of your throat, right? Ha, ha. Okay? You're closing. So let's start with the ha, because that's what he starts with. So with the ha, you have these vocal cords down here, right? And you're supposed to open and close them in order to produce sounds. Okay? Ha. So what you notice, if you keep saying ha, when you're saying you're closing the vocal cords completely. And when you're saying okay, they're not closed completely, but they are constricted. They are restricted a little bit. Okay? They're not closed, but they're restricted. There's still air that's flowing, and that's why it's a continuous sound. Okay? I can keep saying, as long as I don't run out of breath, I can keep saying. Okay? So that's a continuous sound. You can extend it, right? With respect to the it's non-extendable. You cannot make it longer, right? Because it's a discontinuous sound. We're closing and opening, and that opening is the production of the sound. Once you've opened, you've already opened. So you can't keep producing the sound unless you close back up and then you open again and blow that air out. Okay? So, discontinuous sound, you're completely closing and then opening, as opposed to it's a continuous sound because it's not completely closed. The vocal cords are not completely closed. Okay? So some problems with the pronunciation of the when you open your vocal cords too much, that's not it. Okay? When you open them too little, too much friction, you come closer to a ha sound. Okay? So you don't want it to be too constricted and produce a ha-like sound, or give the ha-like properties. And you don't want to be too open and produce weird sounds, right? I'm not closing, I'm not restricting my vocal cords, and so it comes out incorrect as well. So again, with all of these letters, there's deficiency in doing something, right? Like I was trying to come up with a wow one. Okay. War, ruh. I'm deficient in opening my lips properly. I'm not doing it enough. There's a deficiency in the opening, right? And then there's the exact measure, exactly how much I should be opening. War, ruh. Not ru. Okay? And then there's too much, right? Excess. War, ruh. Okay? Those are, in every letter you're going to find that there's going to be those three: deficiency, excess, and then the measure in the middle, right? Exactly what you're supposed to be doing. Okay? So when we talk about the ha, I can say in a deficient manner, right? Okay, I'm restricting my vocal cords too much, right? And so, or I can say it properly, correctly, or I can restrict it way too much, okay? Now, also, if you're stopping at the ha, this is a very common problem, and it's very, very bad when you do it with the word Allah, because you're saying the word, like the name of your Lord, you're saying it incorrectly, right? So at least if you're going to get something out of this ha part, just make sure that every time you say Allah, don't say Allah. Allah. Especially in Lebanon, it's like we worship something else. Like we have something else called Allah that we worship. Allah, astaghfirullah, right? Allah. Okay. You have to make sure when you're stopping at a word that ends with ha, you have to make sure that you're actually pronouncing the ha, right? Not Allah, 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 Allah. Okay. Can you guys come up with examples with words that end with ha? Jah. That's it's hard to not say the ha there because it becomes something totally different, like ja, no. Yes, wajh. A lot of people say wajh. Like you barely hear the ha, it's cut off maybe like a fourth of it comes out, right? Wajh, it's difficult, right? Like there's a certain kind of difficulty that's involved in making sure that like I'm going to produce this sound, okay? So
وقال الإنسان ما هي
ما هي, yes, ما هي. Okay, so close the vocal cords when you're saying the Depending on your background, this is going to be relevant, not relevant. This is going to be a common mistake for you or not a common mistake, right? So if you don't close with the if you don't close the vocal cords completely, what happens is you'll say okay? There's no sharpness that happens at the opening of the vocal cords because you didn't close them in the first place, right? So you say closer to an alif sound, right? That's what you're saying, except that you're saying it and it sounds vaguely like an hamza, but it's a completely different letter that you're saying, okay? This is very common, right? So you have to make sure that you're closing the vocal cords completely. Okay? This is extremely common when you're going, like when you're not starting with the letter a. Okay? So, okay. So, inna anzalnahu. It's just, there's no hamza at all. It's just completely gone. Inna, you know, where's the hamza? Right? A lot of people read this way. وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ. There's a letter completely missing here, right? مَا أَدْرَاكَ. Where's the hamza? مَا right? Close the vocal cords completely and then أحسنتي. Yeah, أنت بتعملي هيك أحيانا. أنعمت. Yes. صراط الذين أنعمت. You know? الذين. There's no hamza here as well, right? There is a hamza in the word, but the person who pronounces this way is not pronouncing it properly, so they don't pronounce the hamza. صراط الذين الذين right? You have to kind of like pause after the noon and form your mouth properly for the hamza, close the vocal cords, and then produce the hamza properly. الذين أنعمت, okay? And then there's the other problem where people will say something like ayn when they're trying to say the hamza because they're opening that vocal cords and they're not closing them properly. So they say an'amta or an'amta, right? Or an'amta, closer to an alif, right? Those are all issues that form out of failure to close the vocal cord completely. Okay. One other thing that the brother points out is to produce a qalqala sound in the alif, in the hamza. Okay, and that's obviously also incorrect. We'll get to the correct place to apply this property, inshallah, at some point. However, it's not in the hamza, right? So you don't want to say ma'eluf, right? Ma'luf. Right? Not that extra sound is called qalqala. We don't want to do that. Okay? Ma'luf, not right? Ta'atihim, right? That second sound, ta'atihim, right? That's called qalqala. And it is not a property of the letter the hamza, okay? So you want to make sure that you're opening the vocal cords, ta'tihim, okay? You just immediately jump to the next letter, ta'tihim, not right? Don't blow that air out, right? Ta'tihim. So when the hamza has a sukoon on it, a lot of people have a tendency to install or produce a qalqala sound, and that is incorrect, okay? I'm sorry? they'll say yu'minun, right? Or sometimes it's just laziness. It's not that they're like the person is committing a mistake, it's just laziness. Like they just don't want to say like yu'minun. Because again, like speaking properly involves some difficulty at first until you get used to it and it becomes second nature, right? It's harder to say yu'minun than to say yu'minun, right? The sudden complete pause at the hamza is difficult to produce at first.
Also awkward.
Also awkward, so there's a difficulty in it, right? Yu'minun. So you just want to make sure like it involves effort. Don't try to just like read effortlessly, produce that effort and put that effort into those letters, right? Just make sure that, you're closing that vocal cord completely. You're not having any qalqala sounds when it has a sukoon on it. Okay? So next.
Excuse me, brother.
Yes.
About ha.
Yeah.
We have also some problem for ihdina. When they pronounce, they don't give the sound correct for ha.
So with the ha, sometimes when you don't when you don't restrict enough, I don't know if this is exactly what you're raising, so let me know. What they'll say is like they'll open too much, and so the air gets out too quickly, like ihdina. Is that what you mean? Like too much air.
On other realm also they exaggerate.
Yeah,
make
yeah.
It's not
Right. The ha is a relaxed sound. Ihdina, not ihdina, right? So this is with all the letters. With all the letters, you want to give it like exactly however much emphasis it involves and not too much, not too little. Like you can't say ihdina as well with the hamza, right? Ihdina, With all the letters, they have a proper measure, and with time, as you inshallah listen to qurra that are better than myself, inshallah you can improve exactly like what measure to give each letter. Was that what you were talking about? Yes. Okay. So, ha and ayn. Okay. For those of you who are from an Urdu background or a Farsi background, one extremely helpful trick that the brother kind of points out, it's a little bit, talk about awkward. So one of them is to kind of like go like this and say, ah. Okay? So when you lower your head back, that form of your body does a lot of what you're supposed to be doing yourself for you automatically, right? Another thing he suggests is if you lie down, face up, like lie down on the ground, face up, and try to say it becomes extremely easy for you to locate exactly what is this letter and where is it, what is the sound that I'm supposed to be producing. Because a lot of people produce a hamza sound, and in some languages that's exactly what you're supposed to, like, salamun alaykum, right? You don't say alaykum in Farsi, for example. Not sure in Urdu if it's the same. You say alaykum?
There's no line.
Alaykum?
Yeah.
Alaykum. Yeah, with a hamza, right? So it's going to involve extra effort for you.
No, in Urdu is from ayn, alaykum.
Ayn, alaykum. So it's somewhere between a hamza and a ayn. Yeah. So again, your languages butcher Arabic in this way. So you want to make sure that you're undoing that in order for you to properly say those letters. It's going to be harder because you have something in mind that is incorrect, right? And it's correct in your language, which makes it even harder to kind of like separate. But again, with practice and only with practice, I promise you, you're not going to learn any of this if you don't practice. Okay, 5 minutes a day. Okay, 5 minutes a day should be enough, inshallah. Okay. So, if you look at the screen, this area right here is the epiglottis, right? And so this is what he's talking about here, right? So in order for us to produce these two letters, in order to produce the ayn, what we have to do is we have to push this area. Where's the mouse? Okay, so we have to push this area, okay, the orange, You just like try to say it exactly how he does. And then, so let's talk about the ayn first. We have to push it back without blocking. Okay, the ayn is a semi-continuous, they call it. It's not fully continuous like some of the other letters, and it's not discontinuous. It's semi-continuous. Part of why it's semi-continuous is because it's vibrating. The ayn is a vibration sound. It's not an airflow sound. It's not about blowing air out. So you don't say like right? That's me blowing air out, trying to say the ayn with air being blown out, right? That's obviously incorrect. The ayn is about vibration, right? So if you put your hand here and you say you'll notice that there's vibration, and that's exactly what this letter is. Okay? So So you have to push your epiglottis back, but not close. You're not touching the back of your mouth. Okay? It's not touching. However, that area that you're forming is supposed to kind of produce that sound. And again, if you lower your head back, it becomes hard for you not to say it, right? It's a very nice trick that he comes up with. Okay? So we want to push the epiglottis, which is this orange area here, back toward the back of the mouth. Okay? And then we want to vibrate that area, right? We're not pushing air out. One of the problems is that if you push the epiglottis too much and you leave too little space, okay, if you push it too much back and you leave too little space, it leads to splitting the two sounds, right? So what does that mean? Trying to find the word with ayn in it. لِيَعْبُدُ not لِيَعْبُدُ is the correct way to say it. If you constrict that space too much, it becomes لِيَعْبُدُ. Okay? You kind of like separate them into two letters. Okay? Let me give another example of how this happens sometimes. Ba'du. Okay? It sounds like you're separating it into two words. Okay? It sounds like a pause, which separates it into two words, and now you're saying two words instead of one. Now you're doing tahrif of the Quran, and God knows where you're going to end up. God forbid, right? So you just want to make sure that Ya'budu. Okay? Ya'budu. Push the epiglottis back, but leave enough space for the letter to come out properly. Okay? If you don't push it far enough, if you don't push the epiglottis far enough back, you would come out with an alif sound, for example, right? So you would say Ya'budu. Again, people from non-Arabic backgrounds read like this all the time. So they'll just say like وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ not وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ وَعَمِلُوا right? نستعين right? Right. So you just want to make sure that the vibration is occurring without you pushing the epiglottis far back enough, without going too far as well, right? If you don't push it far back enough, you're not going to produce the vibration, right? So the space is not going to be constricted enough for it to be able to vibrate, right? The vibration is a result of you placing the epiglottis far back enough so that the vibration is able to come out. لعلق, right? Not lalaq. Okay? So the epiglottis, this area of your mouth, right here, this orange part, has to go back enough to cause a small space to be left there, and then you vibrate. It's not about air being pushed out. Okay? All right. So with respect to the ha, is it a continuous or a discontinuous letter?
Continuous.
Continuous. What does that mean? No. So the one you extended is the alif, right? You said ha, right? So you want to say that's how you extend the ha itself. Yes, exactly. So,
Sure.
MashaAllah, MashaAllah, Tabarakallah.
So there's a distinction what you're saying between the mad al-tabi'i, which is alif, rather than just the haraka, which is fatha, right?
Yeah, we talked about those last time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Just to remind, because
yeah.
you know.
Ahsan. So, ha is a continuous sound. I can keep saying it as long as I don't run out of breath. Okay? And that tells me, because it's a continuous letter, that it's about blowing air out. It's about blowing air out. It's not vibration, right? So put your hand here and say, nothing's happening, right? In terms of vibration, you're not gonna sense any vibration. Okay? When you're saying the ha, you want to allow the air to flow, and so you're not gonna push. You're gonna push the epiglottis back, right? This area of the mouth again.
Yeah.
The orange. You're gonna push it back, but not as much as you are doing with the ayn. Okay? So with the ayn, you push it back a lot. Again, you can go too far even with the ayn, right? You can close it too much, and you produce a sound that's like bu'd, right? That's pushing the epiglottis too much, right? But with the ayn, you push it a little bit, you leave a larger space, bu'd, okay? And then if you, when you're doing the ha, you want to open that, leave more space than the ayn, okay? With the ayn, there's less space than there is with the ha between the epiglottis right here and the back of the mouth, right? So this area, the green blue here, is larger with the ha. And then you push air out. Some of the problems that he points out is not pushing it back, which leads to a ha sound, right? Ha. A lot of people read this way, again, especially non-Arabs. So they'll say like, fi ahsani taqweem, ahsani, right? Because they're not pushing the epiglottis back so that the ha is properly formed in their mouth, right? Ahsani, right? So again, a lot of what is going on in the ha is friction, and when the two things that are supposed to be producing friction are too far from each other, the friction is not formed, right? There's no friction. Friction is about things touching each other, right? And so here we're not touching, it's the air, it's friction with the air. But if there's too much space, the air is coming out freely. It's comfortable. There is no constriction of the air that produces the sound, okay? So, is correct. That's the ha sound, okay? Ahsani. So you want to make sure that you're constricting enough so that when you're blowing that air out, the airflow is being constricted, and that causes friction with the two sides, and that's what produces that as opposed to ahsani.
I wanted to show just one thing for this two little sound. Usually we do this and keep their hands in front of their mouth. If they say no air, like very a lot, that means it's correct. More, you can feel it in his hand.
The ha and ayn.
Ha and ha.
Okay, yeah. So that's another contrast. So sister is saying that like with the ha, versus ha. You're saying that ha
Just, yeah. Ha,
is what?
You can feel in your hand, you know,
Ha,
something
ha,
but ha softer.
Okay.
You can feel a little bit out of the mouth.
Yes. Okay. That's a kha, brother. Yeah. Akhi is a kha. Yeah. Okay. So not pushing the epiglottis back enough leads to a ha sound. And then when they come right after each other, which I should have come up with an example for that. So I'll come up with something that doesn't mean anything, right? It's not from the Quran, unfortunately, because I didn't notice to come up with one that is from the Quran. So if we were to pronounce the ayn, ha, right after each other, a lot of people, what they will do is they will combine them. So they'll say like, ma huda. If I'm trying to say ma huda, like I said, I'm terrible with examples, so if I'm not prepared, it's going to come out very bad. So what they'll say is ma huda, right? As opposed to ma huda, right? You're supposed to give each letter enough time to finish, and then you move on to the next letter, as opposed to ma huda, right? You don't really know where one begins and where the other one ends, right? If someone comes up with a better example, please let me know, and we can try with that one, inshallah. For them coming next to each other. Yes, ha and ha. Yeah. Okay. So again, the two tricks that he comes up with in order to help you say the ayn properly is lower your whole head back and say it when you're looking up, face up, and then say okay? That almost makes it impossible for you to say. I mean, it's not impossible, it's a lot harder for you to say it incorrectly, like a hamza. Or you can lie down, face up, and do that as well. I didn't try that one, so I'm not going to recommend that for anyone. You can try it for yourself. Okay. So the next two letters that he contrasts are kha, and ghain, ra. So kha, and ra. Okay, they're very close, and it's very annoying to distinguish them from each other. Okay, so with respect to the ghain, the root of the tongue is the last part of the tongue. I'll just draw it here. So this is the tongue. This is the root. Okay? This is the tip. These are the edges, and I think they call this like the middle. I'll double check in a minute. Okay. So when you're trying to say the ghain, ra, okay, which is this letter. I don't know how much you can see up here. Can you guys see up there? Yeah? Okay. So with the ghain letter, okay, it's like the a, but it has a dot on it, right? So the root of the tongue, the last part of it, the most back part of your tongue, is raised to almost touch the soft palate. The soft palate is the back part of your mouth. I don't know, what is this red? Is this red? So let's say this is red, okay? So that part is the soft palate. It's the back top part of your mouth, okay? So the back part of the root of your tongue, the back part of your tongue, the one that's furthest most in, right, is supposed to touch the back palate, which is the soft palate, right? So this is the part of your tongue in the back is supposed to touch this part of your palate. Okay? The red one. The orange back here at the end is supposed to touch the red part on the top. Okay? So, and again, this is about vibration. It's not about airflow. Okay? Okay? If you put your hand like here, you're supposed to feel the vibration. It should be very pronounced, right? Like it's not like, oh, am I feeling it? Or if you're not sure, you're not producing the letter correctly. Okay? It's about vibration, right? So some of the problems that he points out is instead of, so he says, sometimes people touch the root of the tongue to the soft palate, right? The root of the tongue to the soft palate, instead of like really bringing it close and almost touching, they actually touch. So let's all try to do that. If we try to touch it, what happens? Right? It's very ill-formed. The air is trying to create the space for it to come out, right? It's closer to a ch sound, right? Right? It's a weird gargling sound as opposed to the proper ghain, okay? So pressing the root of the tongue on the soft palate is an incorrect way of pronouncing the ghain. You're supposed to almost touch the root of your tongue, the backmost part of it, to the soft palate, which is the backmost part of the top of your mouth. Oh, yeah. Wow, this is heavy.
See, it's not the perfect for Makharij, but inshallah we'll make one.
Well, it's pretty good. Yeah. So, it opens too. Okay. So, the soft palate is back here, technically, right? And then this is the root of your tongue. Okay? So this is supposed to come up and touch, almost touch. Okay? Almost touch. If you touch, you're going to produce weird sounds, right? Several weird sounds. It might be kha, it might be qaf, it might be whatever, right? So you don't want to touch. If you're touching and trying to produce the ghain, it's going to be incorrect, right? So you want to almost touch this back part of your tongue to the back part of the top of your mouth, right? Almost touch and then vibrate, okay? Where it's not about blowing air, it's not about airflow, it's about vibration, okay? And you might also be causing qalqala because you're closing, and so there's a lot of different issues that might happen if you actually press the tongue on that part of your the top of your mouth. So when followed by a qaf, I'm sorry? Ka. Yeah, we're going to get to the kaf inshallah in a minute. Yeah. So when followed by a qaf, you also want to make sure that you're not combining the ghain, qa, gha, qa, gha, qa. They're pretty close to each other, right? I'm sorry, I didn't come up with examples for these. If anybody can think of a ghain followed by a qaf. Yeah, I'm saying like words. Like if you have a word where it's ghain, then qaf, then we can try to do this. So basically the error that happens, I'll come up with a weird example like last time. I'm sorry? Yeah.
Talking about ghain and qaf, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Ghain and qaf, we want them to be right after each other.
Boiling water apparently makes a haqqa sound. Haqqa? Is that correct?
boiling water?
When the sound of when water boils, fell in Madi, for when my yacht
غَقَّ. Well, I want something that I can continue,
Yeah.
right? So that I can, because we're talking about combining them. People combine them. Let's just see something strange.
You mean it's one word on top of the other word?
Or same word. بالغ قدره. Okay. So some people will say like بالغ قد, بالغ قد, بالغ قد. So it's actually like when it has sukoon on it, when the ghain has a sukoon. So let's say that it's like بالغ قدره, بالغ قدره, right? So what some people will say is بالغ قد, بالغ قد, بالغ قد. Okay? So it's not really clear where one begins and the other. So just with all letters, just make sure to give every letter the unit of time. Oh, I erased that. The unit of time that it deserves. Okay? Don't just like combine them into one letter or anything like that. When you really focus on the fact that I'm reading Quran properly, means that every letter has a right upon me to be this much extended, whatever unit you decided, whatever speed you decided to read at, that's the speed that you're reading at, right? So every letter demands that unit of time from you. You can't make one letter short and the other one long and then the other one short and then one of them proper, and if you do that, you're not reading properly. So the first rule of tajweed is that every letter has a right to exactly the same period of time as any other letter, right? And then you start applying rules that tell you like, okay, so in this case you extend this one double, this one triple, this one quadruple, whatever, right? After that you start applying the rules, and yes, you will get some letters that are going to get more, but it's the rules that tell you that. It's not just you deciding. Okay? So you have to train Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Right? With the ya al-maddiya, we extend it because there's a rule that says extend. Not because I felt like, oh, wouldn't it be nice if I read the Quran this way? Right? It's not about like what I find, my ear finds pleasant. Right? It's about the rules. But all the others, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Up until the ya al-maddiya and the rahim, supposedly I brought out every letter with an equal amount of time. Okay? Slowing down is extremely essential. Slow down. When you're learning Quran or anything else for that matter, but like especially with Quran, don't try to read quickly. Okay? So those 5 minutes, if you can get like 2 lines, 2 ayahs of Quran in those 5 minutes, you're good. Okay? 3 ayahs of Quran, I mean depending on the ayah, right? Not like the one of the ones with like the 2-word ayahs or something, right? But if you're reading like let's say a third of a page in 5 minutes, a half a page in 5 minutes, depending on how proficient you are in Arabic, that should be more than enough in 5 minutes, right? You're not supposed to be like, oh, let me read really quickly so I can demonstrate how good I've gotten, right? Then you're gonna go back. Again, like the fundamental thing to keep in mind, the brain needs time to process new things, right? If you push it and you don't give it enough time, it will go back to what it's trained to do, what it has been doing all along, okay? And that's incorrect. That's what you're trying to fix, right? So in order for your mind, your brain, to have enough time to process the change that it's supposed to be applying, and then apply it, and then focus on the coming letter, and do that with the coming letter as well, that needs time. So read slowly. Okay? Reading slowly really helps you figure out how to properly give each letter the units it deserves, and how to apply the fixing, the pronunciation and the makharij, inshallah. Any questions?
Is the time for sukoon, it's like 1 unit also? Or no, it's the half unit? When I say, for example, is the sound for alif, hamza, fatha is 1 unit, but kha, sukoon,
Hamza,
for example, when I say
akh.
for example, how many here unit? 2, complete 2?
For the kha,
Yeah, for this one, is it
The sukun.
Yeah, what about the sukun? I mean the time.
As far as I know, all of these get one unit. As far as I know, I'll get back to you if so. Sometimes like different qira'at will do different things,
Yeah, different.
right? So with respect to like Hafs an Asim, which is the qira'ah that that I've trained on, as far as I know, it's supposed to get the same.
The same.
Yeah.
The example, for example, Bismillah,
Yep.
Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahman, Ra. So the time for Ar and then
Ar-Ra. So Sister Yusuf may help us on.
It is 1 unit.
Yeah.
is unit also.
This
Yes.
is like the letter, the sound, the letter with the stopping sound.
I mean,
Yeah.
It is 1 unit.
Dada. Mr. Dada here. Why no mama? Huh? Urkut. Okay. So, kha, ghain. Right? لا تزغقوا. Yeah, أحسنتم. So, لا تزغقوا. لا تزغقوا. Some people say لا تزغقوا. لا تزغ. It's almost like تزغقوا, right? Like they skip the ghain completely, or people do all kinds of weird things. But like I said, the remedy for all of this, give each letter the time it deserves. Okay? That's the remedy for all of these issues, right? Give each letter the time that it deserves. لا تزغقوا. 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 Okay? تزغقوا. Right? Not تزغقوا. Right? Just jumbling them together, right? That's a rule about all letters, really. But sometimes it creates like worse issues than others. So if you do airflow with, sorry, we were talking about the kha, right? The ghain. Okay, yeah. So if you do airflow instead of vibration, you get a kha sound, right? So you want to vibrate with the ghain. If you do airflow, okay, now you're in the territory of kha, not. And then he said something about like if you put your hand here and try your fingers here and you try to like figure out if there's vibration when you say the kha, it's not supposed to be vibrating. I didn't find that to be correct for me, right? Like there is still some it's not compared to the ghain, of course, it's a lot less. But when you say like kha, there is that light vibration still, right? So, but generally speaking, when you compare, if you say right, with the ghain, you're supposed to feel like a substantial amount of vibration. With the kha, it's less.
Wave, whereas with the ha, it's an acoustic like
Yeah.
vibration.
Ahsan. Yeah. خليه يدفع مصاري إذا بده ياخذ أقلام. Okay, so with the kha, the root of the tongue, again, is raised, the same with the ghain, to almost touch the soft palate in the back of the top of the mouth, same issue, and not pressing, right? Those are all the same. However, the makhraj, where it's touching the soft palate, okay, is above that of the ghain. So try to say gha, gha, and then kha, kha. The kha is closer to the opening of your mouth. Gha is a little bit deeper. Gha, gha, kha, kha. Okay, so it's slightly above the makhraj of the ghain. No vibration, airflow. And that's the fundamental difference between the ghain and the kha, is that one of them is vibration, the other one is airflow, right? The kha, you're pushing air out. Kha, 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 kha. Okay? It's not about vibrating and holding. And sometimes what people will do with the kha, if they're not trained to produce it properly, is they'll produce it from the middle of the mouth where you snore, right? So they'll say like kha, 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 right? From the middle of the mouth as opposed to from the back, right? So it's supposed to be, again, this very small opening that you've left, by lifting the back of your tongue to the soft palate, almost touching, and then saying kha, 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 kha. Okay? If you produce it from the front, it becomes this kha, 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 kha. Okay? So you want to make sure that it's produced from the back of your mouth. The next two letters, qa, ka, qa, ka, qa, ka. Okay? Qaf and kaf. The qaf comes from the deepest part of your tongue, making contact. So with the ghain and the kha, we said we bring the back part of your tongue, the root of the tongue, to the soft palate, almost touching. Here, with the qa, ka, we're going to be touching. Okay? So, we bring the deepest part of the tongue to make contact with the soft palate. The soft palate is the back part of the top of your tongue. The mouth, the top of the mouth. Right? So technically speaking, like for a tajweed one, like you need like a little bit more here, which is where the soft palate really is. Like it's really here, right? But for the purposes of what's going on here, we can just suffice with saying here, right? So the tongue is supposed to touch with the qaf and the kaf, right? He also suggests that if you lie down and you say qa, it's easier, right? Or pull your head back. It's easier for you to determine. Now, when you're reading Quran, you obviously don't want to be doing this in the middle of the word and then like keep reading. So, but you know, just to kind of like train on it properly, figure out exactly what's supposed to be happening, and then continue reading, continue practicing on it with your head properly structured. So some problems that he points out is if it's deeper than where it should be, it leads to hints of kha, 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 or gha, 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 right? So instead of like producing a qa, 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 we end up with gha, gha, a little bit deeper, right? Or kha, 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 right? So you want to make sure you hit that particular area where it says qa, 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 qa. Okay, can we all try that? Qa, qa, qa. Okay. And then failure to do qalqala, when it has a sukoon on it, qaf is one of the letters that when it has sukoon on it, it has a property called qalqala that's supposed to be installed, right? It's supposed to be produced, right? So we don't say muqbil, muqbil, it's almost gone, right? Like where's the qaf? Muqbil, there's something going on, it's not a qaf, right? When you have a sukoon, right? So you want to make sure that you're saying muqqa, muqabil, muqabil, okay? When it has a sukoon on it particularly, okay? That makes the qaf sound actually come out. Muqqa, muqqa, okay? It's not about, we also don't want to make a fatha. We don't want to say muqqa, qa. You're supposed to just let the air on its own come out. With a fatha, we're actually making an effort, right? Qa, qa, I'm doing something. With the qalqala, you're just letting something fall, right? Muqqa, 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 right? I'm just releasing. I'm not actually making a forward effort, right? Like muqqa, muqqa. That's me saying a fatha. Muqabil, muqa, muqa, right? As opposed to muqabil, muqabil, muqabil. I'm just releasing something, right? So just, this takes a lot of practice, so just keep practicing, okay? If you have any questions, if you're practicing and you want to test whether you're practicing correctly or not, or anything like that, please private message me on WhatsApp and I can verify as much as I can, inshallah. Okay. So, now the ka. Okay, so it's almost the same as the qa, ka, qa, qa, but it makes contact with the meeting point between the soft and the hard palates, right? So this is the hard palate, the yellow here, okay? And then the red is the soft palate. Those are the two parts that are the top of your mouth, okay? With the qa, you're back here with the soft palate. You're supposed to bring the back part of your tongue to touch the soft palate, and then qa, okay? With the ka, it's supposed to hit exactly in that area where the soft palate in the back of the top of your mouth, and actually this helps here. So where the back of your mouth, which is the soft palate, and the front of the top of your mouth are meeting. The meeting place between them produces a ka sound. Okay? If you go a little bit back, you get to the qa. You produced a qaf. So you just want to make sure, again, with practice, like the way that like the ulama of tajweed figured out how these things are happening is they literally sat down and they said and thought about where it's coming from, what they're doing with their tongue, what they're doing with the top of their mouth, what they're doing with the throat, what the air is doing, are they closing, are they constricting, the vocal cords. Those are the questions that they asked themselves, but it was all about practice, right? And if you want to figure it out, you also have to practice, right? It's all about practice. So really, like, we can't do that in this class. We don't have enough time. If you don't complement what we're doing in this class at home by yourself, this is not going to benefit you as much, God forbid. Okay. Let's go until noon, if that's okay. Yeah. So 10 minutes, inshallah. So problems that you can do with the kaf, and this is very common, unfortunately, as well. So let's say the word is thukl, okay? Some people will say thukl, or thukl, or weird things like that. So you just want to make sure that the kaf, when it has a sukoon on it, it has a very pronounced property called hams, okay? Hams. Hams means whisper, okay? So when you do hams to the kaf, it comes out like this. Thuk. It's just literally a breath that's released, small breath, right? Not like thuk, right? So you don't want to overdo it. But it is a breath that's released, slow, a very, very little breath that's released right after you do the kaf. Thuk. There's a breath of air, very small breath of air that's coming out after the kaf itself. Without it, you say something like thukl. It's just too much blockage, right? So to relieve that tension, thukl, right? It's just almost impossible. So you're always, when you're producing a kaf, the natural thing is to do hams, right? The issue here is just to do it enough, right? So that it's proper hams and it's not just what your mouth is doing on its own, right? Thukl, right? Thukl. You hear that? So you want to make sure that you're doing that with the kaf as-sakina. There's always, with the kaf, there's always hams, but precisely when it's sakina, okay? Thukl, okay? Okay, so 3 more letters and inshallah we'll take a break. Jim, sheen, and ya. So this is the ya that is not maddiya. We're not talking about like rahi. That's not the ya that we're talking about. This is a ya that has a fatha or a dhamma or shadda and kasra sometimes. I gave you an example in the homework. I haven't gone through all the homework, but I'm looking forward to see what people did with al-maghshi, right? Because it sounds like so sometimes if it has a shadda and kasra as well, right? Or yi, you. Yes. So maghshi, sukun first, because it's as we talked about, the shadda is 2 letters in the Arabic language. It's just instead of writing 2 letters, one with a sukun and the other one with whatever haraka the letter has on it, we just put a shadda, right? Maghshi, sukun, yi, kasra. Maghshi, okay? So,
the material on the board, on the left, is it for you or for us? We don't see it.
yeah, you don't have to see it. I'm saying them out loud. Yeah. So 3 letters, jim, sheen, and ya from the middle part of the tongue, right? So this part right here of the tongue, okay? So we're not talking about the root of the tongue all the way in the back of the tongue, and we're not talking about the tip, but just that middle part, the middle part of your tongue. Okay, so the middle part of the tongue with the jim, okay? The middle part of your tongue makes contact with the hard palate. The hard palate is the front part of the top of your mouth, right? This is the hard palate, okay? The back part is the soft palate. The front part is the hard palate, okay? So if you want to do this really, you can put your finger in and touch, and they're actually like, this one is hard, this part of your palate is hard, the back one is soft. That's why they call them hard and soft palates, okay? So the middle part of your tongue, right here, not the tip, closer to the outer part of your mouth, and not the root, right? In the middle, right? And we're not talking about the edges either, right? So like in the middle, right? So the middle part of your tongue, when you're saying jim, makes contact with the hard palate, okay? The middle part of the tongue, this part right here, okay, makes contact with the hard palate, this front part of the top of your mouth, right? Jim, okay? So, makes contact with the hard palate. Air is blocked completely, jim, okay? Not this Lebanese jim, please never say that, okay? Yeah.
If you learn Farsi, you have to say it.
Yeah, please don't say it when you're reading Quran. Unless it's a translation of Quran into Farsi, then you can say it. Okay, so the middle part of your tongue makes contact with the hard palate, which is the front part of the top of your mouth, right? Air is blocked and then released, which makes it a discontinuous sound. You can't keep saying jim. You can keep saying the incorrect Lebanese jim, right? You can keep saying that one, but that is an incorrect jim. The proper Fusha Arabic jim has a d sound at the beginning of it, right? It has a dal sound at the beginning. It's just part of the jim is that sound, right? Without it, you're not saying the letter correctly, okay? So, jim. Can we all say it together? Jim. Okay. So again, the middle part of your tongue touches the hard palate and blocks the air completely, and then the release of that air is that sound, right? Jim. Okay? It's a discontinuous sound. So make sure you're not saying something continuous like zh. Okay, that's a similar sound, but it lacks that D part. The D, D, G, J, D, J, 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 right? Without that part, you're saying it incorrectly. And that's a very common mistake as well. I think there's other dialects than Lebanese that do that as well. I'm just speaking on that part of the Arab world particularly. Okay, so the next letter is Sheen. Sh, 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 sh. Again, we're talking about the same part, the middle part of your tongue is raised toward, but without contact, right? The Jim blocks air, the Sheen doesn't. As you just saw, you can continuously keep producing that sound. Sheen, sheen, right? So it's not a discontinuous sound. If it's not discontinuous, that means the air is not blocked. So there's no touching, right? So there's no touching of the middle part of the tongue that's being raised. It's not touching the top, the hard palate. It's not touching, it almost touches, right? So it can be a continuous sound, right? Sheen, sheen. Can we all do that? Sheen, sheen, sheen. Okay. And then finally, for this part, al-ya غير المادية, right? We're not talking about al-rahi, not that ya. We're talking about ya, you, yi. That ya. So it's the middle part of the tongue being raised to the hard palate. Again, all of these are pretty much the same. But at a place that's behind the jim and the sheen. Ya, ya. It's behind. So it's touching the hard, they're all touching the hard palate, right? The jim and the sheen are here, but the ya is behind, right? Ya, ya, ya. I don't know if I just said touching, right? Some of them are touching, some of them are not, right? So the jim touches, the sheen does not touch. It leaves a space for the air to flow, and that's why it's a continuous letter, because the air is flowing. So as long as you don't run out of breath, you can keep saying it. Shh, right? And then finally, y, 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 y. The ya is also a continuous letter, right? So you can keep saying it because the air is flowing. Y, y, y. So it's not blocking the air like the jim does. Okay? صلوات على محمد وآل محمد اللهم صل على محمد. So inshallah we'll be back at 12:15. Please don't be late.
Where are we going?
You're going wherever you want. You can go here. Just take a break for 15 minutes inshallah. Fatima.
The concept of مخارج and صفات الحروف is the most fundamental concept in the study of tajweed. It is essentially the basis upon which all tajweed rules are
Okay, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
وعليكم السلام.
الياء غير المادية, okay, edges of the tongue. So for now, inshallah, we're going to switch to
This is lesson 7
صح
of
معك حق.
Makharij and Sifat series. After discussing the letters of the deepest part of the tongue, which are Qaf and Kaf, and also the letters of the middle part of the tongue, Jim.
Where's the speed?
The settings, the cog. Oh, right there.
Oh, okay, it's on the bottom. Okay, yeah. So I'm just gonna.
Wow, 2 is a lot.
Jim, Shin, and Ya غير مادية. It is time to start tackling the edge of the tongue. And as you can see, the edge of the tongue goes all the way around the tongue. And from both sides of the tongue, we produce the letter Bod. And from the front edge of the tongue, we produce 2 types of Mem. And today, we'll put all our focus on the letter Bod and how to pronounce it properly. So let's get started. To perform the letter Bod with Sukun, which is the pure Bod.
So, so just so everybody's on the same page, we're talking about like the edge of the tongue, right, on either side. I don't think anybody who hasn't been like taught tajweed does the bod in the proper way that they are supposed to, right? So most people say bod, and they're doing it in the front of from the tip of their mouth, bod, right? But the bod is actually supposed to come from the left or the right side, bod. Or actually, the most proper one is both, but that's the hardest as well. So, bod, right? The air is supposed to be going left and right, not bod, yeah. I find it very difficult myself, right? I struggle to do it on both sides, right? So, in order for you to avoid biting your tongue, it's probably best for you to do like just choose a side and train on it, train. Bod, right? Left or right. So it comes out of the edge. Yeah.
What about
Sound. You'll read it before.
I'm sorry?
closing your mouth and saying ba?
You're opening your mouth though.
No, I mean, with closing, like ba.
Like bod. Yeah.
The tongue needs to touch the tongue, right?
Bod, yeah. So you want to make sure that your mouth is open at the right level, right?
2 actions with the tongue. 1, pressing the tongue, and 2nd, sliding the tongue. Starting with
Please pay close attention because it's very technical. The dad is one of the hardest letters to produce. And there's different things that you have to do that if you're not trained in tajweed, I promise you're not aware of, right? For example, there's 2 things. Just like I said, like one of them is that it comes out of the edge of the mouth, not from the front, not ba, like most people who are Arabic actually say it, right? So it has to come out of the edge of the tongue, the edges of the tongue, here and there, not from the tip. That's number 1. The other one is, when you say bod, your tongue is supposed to go forward. There's a tongue motion involved in saying the letter dad. It's very hard. The dad is like yeah. So the dad is extremely hard because it also involves a movement of the tongue, Okay, so this is what he's talking about here. There's a pressing part of it, and then there's a sliding. The tongue is supposed to slide. So we'll see what he
First, how and where do you press the tongue? Well, the entire edge of the tongue will be making contact with the roof of the mouth. Notice, and that is
Okay, just make sure that this, you understand, this is the roof of the mouth. Okay, when I first watched it, I thought it was the bottom, and it confused me a lot. But this is the roof of your mouth, the top part, right? Like the top part.
very important. Notice that only the two sides of the tongue are pressing, while the front edge is only making contact without applying any press. When the tongue is in this position, it kind of takes the shape of a spoon. So your tongue should look like a spoon when it is in this position. The edges are raised and pressing against the roof of the mouth, and the front edge is also making contact but not pressing at all. This creates kind of a space or a room in which air is trapped inside. And then the second step. The second step is sliding the tongue slightly forward up to the point that the front edge of the tongue is almost touching the back of the upper front teeth. This will
The sound wasn't this annoying last time.
1.5.
Oh, is it the speed?
Yeah.
Well, I have the speed on fast on purpose.
So it gets squeakier the faster it goes.
I see. Okay. So let's maybe go to 1.5 instead of 2.
He's a bit on the.
then creates even more space behind the tongue, which then fills it up with more air, building the pressure that produces the proper mod sound. Ow. 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 So shaping the tongue like a spoon and pressing its sides against the roof of the mouth, while the front edge is only making contact, then sliding the tongue forward.
Okay. So I'm just going to repeat this. Please, everybody pay attention so that you understand exactly the formation of the tongue. The tongue is really like essential, right? So the sides of the tongue are supposed to be pressing up, and then the tip is merely touching, and then you're going forward. Okay? It's like there's a lot of steps. So this is why, like it's all about practice, practice, practice. Okay?
And if the sisters are translating for Arabic, they can wait and you will explain it also in Arabic.
Inshallah.
Yeah, inshallah.
A spoon and pressing its sides against the roof of
So just for reference, the blue means pressure, pressing. The yellow means touching. He needs to explain that somewhere.
the mouth, while the front edge is only making contact, then sliding the tongue forward. Notice how the room inside the tongue expands as it slides forward, creating the pressure that produces the sound. Fadl. Yadrib. Expands as it slides.
So this expansion he's talking about is a result of the tongue sliding forward. It creates a larger area, right? Fadl. Fadl. Right? So you're supposed to slide your tongue forward. That creates a larger space for the sound to kind of reverberate in.
Making contact, then sliding the tongue forward. Notice how the room inside the tongue expands as it slides forward, creating the pressure that produces the sound. Fadl. Yadrib. Afadtum. So how do you know if you are getting it right? Well, if you pronounce that mod properly within a word, you'll notice that when leaving that mod with sukun and moving to the letter after, you will feel some kind of air released from the sides of your tongue, slightly pushing this air to the corners of your cheeks.
So this trick is extremely important, right? So try to say fadlu, 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 fadlu. If you feel like there's air being expelled on the sides, right? If you can all say it, fadlu, 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 right? There's air that's supposed to be expelled, right? Because as we saw in this image, where was it?
Your tongue, slightly pushing this after, when leaving that, well, if you pronounce that mod properly, notice how the sliding the tongue forward.
So there's air here that's captured, right? And so when you move toward the lam, fadlu, right? When you move away from the dad, that air is going to be compressed and it has to go somewhere, right? So if you're holding the tip of your tongue to the top, right? If you're holding the tip of your tongue to the top, like he's saying, holding, not pressing, right? Then the air is not going to be able to escape forward. That's how most people say the dad. They say ba, ba. The air is escaping from the front, right? The proper Fusha Arabic dad is supposed to, the tip of your tongue is supposed to be here, and it prevents right? It prevents the air from leaving from the front. And so it has nowhere else to go except from the sides, right? Or if you're doing it from one side only, from that side, right? So that's why the air is being expelled and it has to go.
Notice how the room inside the tongue expands as it slides forward, creating the pressure that produces the sound. فضل يضرب أفضتم. So how do you know if you are getting it right?
The key is to make sure that the pressure on both sides that you're applying with the blue that he talks about here.
So how do you know if you are getting it right? فضل.
This, it's like he's.
The tongue expands as it slides forward, creating the pressure that produces the sound. فضل.
So the blue parts pressing up, that's really like extremely essential. That's the key to producing it in the way that ulama at-tajweed have told us that it can, that it should be pronounced. So just to kind of like put this out there, the other way of doing it incorrectly sort of produces an extremely similar sound, okay? So worst case scenario, if you try your best with this and you can't really do it the way that they're describing, you can just say fadlu, 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 right? Fadlu. But just make sure that the tip is touching the top, right? The tip of your tongue is touching the top, because if you don't do that, then you're gonna do fadl, fadl, fadlu, fadlu, right? And what is that called? Fadl. That's qalqala, right? Fadl, b, right? We don't want to do that. So you want to hold the tip of your tongue to the top of your mouth so that you avoid doing a qalqala, right? Qalqala is, qutub, jad. Those are the ahruf for qalqala. We don't want to do fadl, b. There's no aspect of this letter, right? Fadlu, 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 okay? Fadlu, fadlu. But just make sure that the sides are pressing on the top, and the tip, or the edges is what they call it as well. So the edges of your tongue are pressing up, and the tip is touching, and then slide it forward a little bit. Right?
يضرب أفضتم. So how do you know if you are getting it right? Well, if you pronounce that mod properly within a word, you'll notice that when leaving that mod with sukoon and moving to the letter after, you will feel some kind of air released from the sides of your tongue, slightly pushing this air to the corners of your cheeks. فضل يضرب. If you feel that the air is released from the front part of the tongue and not from the sides, then this means that you had been pressing using the front edge of the tongue, which means that you had produced a bel and not mod, and it will sound like this. يضرب أفضتم. Finally, you must know that the purest and heaviest form of mod is when it has sukoon, which is, as we explained, done by the two consecutive movements of the tongue, pressing and then sliding the tongue slightly forward. However, when mod has tasheel, so fatha, dhamma, or kasra, the second step is minimized, since it is then replaced with the movement of the short vowel. Lu, la, li, afidu, qudiya, faridah. So when the mod has a short vowel, sliding the tongue is minimized, and in its stead, the short vowel is pronounced. But when mod has sukoon, it is used at the end of the word. The first mistake is cutting the mod. Now let's talk about the most common mistakes of the mod. The first mistake is cutting the mod sound, which happens when mod occurs within a word. And this mistake sounds as if the mod is splitting the word into two. And this is very common, especially when mod has shadda within the word. And this mistake sounds like this.
There's almost never a pause when you're reading words in Arabic, right? Anytime you pause, right? That pause means you're reading two words. In tajweed science, in the science of tajweed, it means you've said two words. Walad and then dallin. You've split it into two words, right? So from a fiqhi perspective, that presents issues as well. So just make sure that you're continuous. Any word that you're saying, not walad, don't pause.
So here it sounded more like the word has been split into two parts, while this is supposed to be pronounced as one single word. وَلَا الضَّالِّينَ يَضْرِبْ. The second mistake is pronouncing Lord as a heavy del or a full mouth del. This happens when you press the
This is very common in Urdu background people. They'll say wala da, not va, wala da, they say, okay? So make sure that you're aware of it.
front edge of the tongue against the roof of the mouth, and it sounds like this. وَلَا الضَّالِّينَ يَضْرِبْ. But the sound of Lord should be pronounced from the sides of the tongue, without applying any pressure from the front edge of the tongue against the roof of the mouth. The third common mistake is adding qalqala to Lord when used at the end of the word. The sound of Lord is not produced by releasing air. It is not a plosive sound. It is rather produced when air is formed behind the tongue. Releasing the air when Lord is at the end of the word causes the Lord to have qalqala, which is a wrong practice when it comes to the Lord. The mistake sounds like this. Al-Ard. Al-Ard. Now that last bit of the sound is the qalqala or the releasing of air, which is not supposed to happen. And it should sound like this. Al-Ard. Al-Ard. Finally, the last common mistake is pronouncing Lord as law. And this mistake was particularly explained extensively.
This is some of the Iraqi background people will say va, right? So what that means is they're not blocking the air, so the tip of the mouth is supposed to be right behind the top set of teeth, right here, and it blocks any air from coming out, right? If it's not doing that, you'll say something like wala right? That release of air causes it to switch into a va sound, as opposed to va, ba, okay? So you want to make sure that you're saying ba. It's a discontinuous sound. The air is completely blocked and then released, okay? And then released at once, right? It's not a continuous release of air, right? It's not supposed to be something that you can extend, right? So especially if you're from an Iraqi background, you have a tendency probably from your dialect to say wala dha, right? So that's a continuous sound. I can keep doing it, right? So it's an incorrect sound for the ba. The dad is about blocking the air completely and then releasing. And that release is that sound, is the sound, the correct sound of the dad, okay? Ba. No release of air, no vibration, none of that.
In this lesson, so check it out to get the full story on how to differentiate between.
Okay, yes, sir.
It's not in the other video either, what I'm asking. Where it ends, where it falls, is almost where the tongue ends, pretty much.
The concept of makharij and sifat al-huruf.
Go ahead.
It's pretty much dal, right? Where law ends.
Ends?
Yeah. So,
What do you mean by ends?
like, at the end of the odd sound, there's a slight.
Va. Wala va.
Do you hear that almost sound?
No, I hear a dot. So what do you mean? Because like it's not supposed to be like at the beginning it sounds like something and at the end it sounds something different, you know?
Roughly,
The dal is produced. Huh?
Let's say, no, that's like really different. Give me a word with dot in the middle.
Mudil.
Do you hear a slight dot?
Mudil. If I'm saying it incorrectly, then yes. Mudil. So da.
No, you when
Da.
you go to
Va.
dot, then I don't hear the dot sound.
Mudil.
In that abrupt,
Mudil.
in the disconnect, there's almost a da sound.
I mean, they're very similar letters, so they are similar. So yes, they're.
Where?
I
But
mean,
it's not, you're not hearing a da sound from it.
are you hearing it from how he's saying it as well, or just me?
Well, he's saying it as well.
Oh, okay. Sure. What's the question?
Just confirming that it's not a like in my head, but
Mm.
it's not.
It might be.
That's what it might be. That's
Yeah,
what it seems
yeah,
like,
yeah, maybe. But again, like they're extremely similar letters, right? Instead of like, so you know, with the, well, it's gone now. It's gonna take me an hour to put it down. But basically, with the bod, right? You're supposed to form like a spoon, right, with your tongue, and then these parts on the left and on the right, the edges of your tongue, are supposed to press up, and the tip is supposed to touch. When the tip touches, it prevents a dal sound, because da is about the touching of the tip of your mouth to the top of your mouth, the tip of your tongue, sorry.
Yes.
The tip of your tongue to the top of your mouth, and then releasing, da,
Yes.
right? So if I'm holding my tongue there
So when you
until
release
the air is completely expelled from the sides, then I'm preventing a proper dal sound,
Okay, so
Now,
you want to pause before you open the front, because if you
you want to
pause releasing
expel
it-
the air, you're not pausing.
I know what I'm saying is you stop expelling the air before you go to the next letter.
فضل. Yes,
Okay,
yes.
'cause if you continue expelling the air,
Yes, you have some residual air and you're still blowing and you've
Exactly.
removed the tip of your tongue, then yes, that air probably can go out of there and maybe produce an incorrect dal sound.
there's also next like a little.
Yes, فضل. Yeah.
50-50, I'm hearing
Fadlun,
it. That's.
Okay.
Oh, oh,
Um,
oh. Complete.
just go. Okay. So, these are the common mistakes for.
Welcome to Lesson 8 of Makharij and Sifat series. In this lesson, we'll tackle the letter Lam. Lam is one of the easier sounds in Arabic, since it is already used in many languages around the world. To pronounce the sound properly, you need to identify two articulators. First, the front edge of the tongue, which is that highlighted area. And second, the alveolar ridge. The alveolar ridge is that bony part behind your front teeth. It is also the socket in which your teeth are. So how is the lam pronounced in Arabic? You pronounce lam when the front edge of the tongue is raised and pressing against the alveolar ridge. And when you say pressing, we mean that there is no space or room for air to pass through. And as you can see, this is how much contact between the tongue and the alveolar ridge. The tongue is not spread too wide and not too narrow, specifically in the area behind these 8 teeth. So this is a contact area between the front edge of the tongue and the alveolar ridge. So, if the tongue is pressing against the alveolar ridge, how will air escape to produce the sound then? Well, the breath or air will escape from around the tongue, so from both sides. And air passing through like that produces the sound of lam. Al. Al. نزلنا للكافرين قل. So this is how you pronounce the lam in every single word in Arabic, except in one word, which is the most honored word, Allah. When starting at the word Allah, lam will be pronounced slightly differently from all other words in Arabic. Specifically, it will be a full mouth lam, or as we call it in English, the dark L, as in the word luck. And pronouncing lam like that requires different movement than the previous one. So how is that sound produced? Well, the front edge of the tongue is making the exact same movement as with the other lam, so it is raised and pressing against the alveolar ridge. However, the back of the tongue, as you can see, is raised, making the tongue in kind of a concave position, which enables the sound to be full mouth. And we also notice that the epiglottis is pushing back, which also helps in making the sound fuller and darker. Ow. Ow.
Okay, so can we all try to do that? Allah. Just try to make sure that like your tongue, it's just the tip of it that's touching on the tip here, like right above your teeth, right? Don't put like too much of your tongue up here, just like touching the top. right? Just the tip touching right above the top set of teeth, right? Al, like this. Allah, 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 right? And then, like he said, make sure your tongue is formed like this, right? So that it has that space to give it the majesty of the sound, right? Allah. So this is the only word where you will ever say in the Arabic language a mufakhama lam, okay? Never say the lam as la, ever, except in the word Allah, if it's preceded or if it's preceded by a dhamma, if the word Allah is preceded by a dhamma or a fatha, okay, a dhamma or a fatha, right? Fadlul Allah, fadlu, lu, dhamma on the lam, the word right before. Fadlu, Allah, fadla, okay, so fad, lu, and la are mufakhama. This is the thick lam, and when it has the last letter before the word Allah has a kasra, it's the thin lam. So we don't say fadlillah, fadlillah. I mean, just even try to do that, right? Your mouth will tell you this is wrong, right? You don't have to do an extra effort to remember. Fadlillah, fadlillah, right? Lil, thin, fadlillah, right? One thing that most people don't really pay attention to is when the letter before the word Allah is right, that the letter is attached to the word, right? So like, what is that phrase? Then you say it with thinness.
But for the is it Allah or Allah?
The a is a thin letter, the a itself, right? So this is unrelated to this, but we say al, مش الله لا I mean, to the best of your ability. It's very difficult to say Allah, right? So it's very difficult to go from that thinness to the thickness, but that's the struggle that you're supposed to be making, right? We're not supposed to be saying Allah, right? Yeah. So the hamza is a thin letter. So to the best of your ability, you're supposed to kind of show that in your recitation.
So the general rule is that if a letter has a shadda, the first time you pronounce is a little emphasis.
Sukun.
The second time you pronounce is sort of depressed.
It's not about emphasis. It's just the letter with the sukun and then the letter with the haraka.
Yeah.
Right?
Like,
So let's say matha, mathala, for example.
Second time it's softer.
Matha.
No. But with
I don't know if it's softer, but
jinnah,
jinnah. Yeah.
rabbi. So second time it's
Rabbi.
softer. Ba.
Rabbi. It just has a kasra.
Yeah.
It has a haraka. So
Yeah,
it has a different kind of dynamic going on
Yeah,
to it. Yes,
the-
because it has a
The
haraka.
point is, as you pointed out, but in Allah is an exception because
Allah.
second,
Why is it an
second
exception?
la is also prominent. Allah.
Allah.
It's not softer the second time.
Sure, I'm not picking up on the softer part. Like I said, like it has a different property and it sounds different and it has a different dynamic to it because it has a fatha or a kasra or a dhamma. It has a haraka on it. So it's going to sound different than like l versus la. L, la. So yes, the l part, the one with the sukoon, is a very different dynamic, you know. So yeah.
Yeah, it's
Allah.
not Allah. it's Allah. So the
But you can also say Rabba.
yeah, Rabba.
So that's emphasis as well on the second letter, right?
The second ba is less emphasis. The first.
No, I wouldn't say it has less emphasis.
Rabba.
Yeah, I don't necessarily see that it has less emphasis. Rabbal Alameen. Rabbal, right? You know, that's again like emphasizing the second ba more than the first one. So it's just, yeah, it's just a matter of where the emphasis, falls in that sentence. Yeah.
من الله والله.
Right? So when we have a sukoon on the upcoming letter, and the last letter here, does it have a sukoon? Where is it? I see two fatha. Yes, qawman, right? The tanween is a fatha plus noon sakina. So now we have a sukoon, upcoming sukoon, sukoon. So we can't do that. So the way that like they fix this issue is they put a kasra and they delete this sukoon. Okay? That resolves the issue of iltiqa as-sakinain, right? Which is impossible in the Arabic pronunciation. You're never supposed to be pronouncing two sukoons or two letters with both of them having sukoon on each other. Yes.
So it's a general rule, yeah.
Tanween that's followed by sukoon on the first sound that we're pronouncing of the upcoming letter, of the upcoming word, right? So.
But is this specific to lafz al-jalala, Allah?
So I'm trying to come up with an example, قوما. No, we need something that's like alif lam, but something other than Allah. قوما. قوما النار أكلتهم, for example. قوما النار. Right? So again, we switched the fatha qawman, or the sukoon on the tanween, on the noon of the tanween. Qawman, that's what it was. Qawman naru, right? That's what it was initially, right? So now we've switched it into qawma ni. We're not going to say qawman naru, right? Qawma nin naru akalathum, right?
But there's no sukoon.
There is a sukoon. Sorry, this is just like my inability to give good examples. Like I said, we always focus in Arabic on so there's a man and then sukoon fatha, right? Because this is a harf shamsi, so incoming into it, we pronounce a shadda on the first letter. And a shadda is a sukoon and then a haraka, right? So there is a sukoon on the first letter. Again, focus on pronunciation, not on what you see in front of you in the text. So this is very important. And so we have two sukoons here, and so this one is x'd out, and instead we put a kasra on the qawmanin naru. Okay?
أحد الله الصمد.
He just did the tanween of dhamm as well. Ahaduni, not ahadun.
There is of course more to the rules of lam in the word Allah than that, which is explained in full in this lesson. So check it out if you need to refresh your memory. Now, what kind of common mistakes should we avoid with lam? The first common mistake is the whistling lam. The whistling lam is producing the lam from either sides of the tongue, and when that happens, the makhraj becomes much tighter than it should, which causes a faint whistling sound to come.
Please always, when you see him like explaining something, like try it. Always just like try to produce that mistake so that you're aware of it and make sure that you're not doing it.
Along with the sound of lam, as the mistake sounds like this. And the solution is to press the front edge of the tongue in the proper spot, allowing air to escape from both sides of the tongue. The second mistake.
Okay, so the first mistake is blocking the air from one side or the other. It becomes it whistles, right? You see that vibration? That's because I'm blocking the left side. Or if I block the right side as well, the same will happen. So if I let the air come out of both sides, so when you block the air on one side, you're just increasing the volume of air that's escaping from the other side. And that increase causes the vibration of the side of your mouth, right? That's really what's happening, right? So if you let the air flow on both sides, the volume on each side is okay. It's not too much, and so it won't vibrate or it won't whistle, right? Al-layl, al-layl, right? Al-layl.
Is pronouncing lam as full mouth when surrounded by full mouth letters. So we basically fail to switch between full mouth and empty mouth and then back to full mouth. Like in this word, خلق. So the ha and qaf are full mouth and the lam should be empty mouth. So you should switch from full to empty and then back to full. خلق. خلق.
So just for the purposes of like explaining a little bit, just switch full mouth to thick and empty mouth to thin, right? Kha, la, qa, right? We don't want to say khalaqa, khalaqa, right? Or khala, khala, khalaqa, khalaqa, right? Kha, la, qa, la, right? So again, just keep in mind that tafkhim is about going like this. Kha, kha, kha. Not too much and not too little. Kha, right? So if I'm going kha, now I have to go back to kha, la, 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 right? I can't keep the form of my mouth in the way that it was with the kha, and that's why I have to slow down. Okay? It's almost impossible to say khalaqa, khalaqa, like very quickly, right? So you have to slow down when you're reading Quran. Khalaqa, 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 right? Then it comes out properly. You give yourself enough time, and with time it becomes habitual, right? It becomes easy for you to go khalaqa, 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 right?
Sometimes when it is also preceded by a full mouth letter like this word, it can cause the same problem. Zalam, zalam, and it should be zalam, zalam. The third mistake is assimilating lam into noon. And this happens when lam is followed by noon. And the mistake sounds like this. جعلنا أنزلنا. And this happens because the lam and noon are pronounced from two spots that are very close to each other. But you should definitely pronounce the lam clearly and with idhar before moving on to the noon. جعلنا أنزلنا. The last mistake is elongating the lam when it has shadda. There is no position in the Quran where you should elongate or extend the lam. But some learners tend to mistakenly extend the lam to show the shadda. But that is of course a mistake, and it sounds like this. وَلَا الضَّالِّينَ. So here the lam was extended needlessly, while it should not be extended. The shadda means duplicating the sound, not extending it. So duplicating the lam is الضَّالِّينَ. وَلَا الضَّالِّينَ. Without extending the lam whatsoever. So this was the last common mistake related to the letter lam.
Any questions so far? Yeah, I'll post it in the group, inshallah. It's this series particularly, that's the only thing I've seen of him so far. Brother Ali has watched a couple of more series, and he says they're very, very good. So please make sure that you follow these at home, inshallah.
So the other suggestion
But I didn't follow that part. Qawman nar. You say something. Discuss.
Yes, so we were saying that in Arabic, you can never pronounce two sukoon, two letters, both of them having sukoon on them. Is that? Okay, yeah. So you can never pronounce two sukoons right after each other. Okay? So we were talking about qawman, qawman, right? So qawman, when you're pronouncing it, forget about how it's written, okay? Pronunciation-wise, we have qa, wu, ma, n. Right? That's what you're pronouncing, right? Okay. And then you're moving into Allah. Okay? So this is Hamzat Wasl. So we don't read it. In the Quran, you'll see like something like this over it or something like that. That means don't, this is Hamzat Wasl. Okay? So I'm not going to put it here, right? We don't read this first letter. So the next letter we're going to actually pronounce is this lam, right? Because we're skipping this letter, we're skipping it. So we're going to go to the next letter. The next letter also has a sukoon on it. So now we're stuck saying qawman Allah, qawman, 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 right? And that's very difficult. I don't know if it's even possible. So the way that it's resolved to avoid these two sukoon being right after each other is we cancel this sukoon and we read a kasra here instead of a sukoon. We don't say qawman Allah, we say qawmani, qawmanillahu.
Yeah, even though there's no sign for the kasra.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you won't. Sometimes in some Qur'ans they will put a little noon here, like this, for example. If you've seen those Qur'ans, yeah, but not all of them do.
Yeah.
So it's up to you to buy one of those if you're interested, particularly in resolving this issue.
So I'm trying to clear the difference with the thick lamb and thin lamb. Let me read all these few words.
Okay.
Fadlullah.
Allah, yes, that's correct.
Fadlullah. And then
Fadlillah, la, ahsan.
Yeah,
Yeah. So again,
but I'm trying to understand, I'm not saying, nevertheless, I have to say the lam twice, because Fadlullah, because I'm repeating
yeah.
twice.
Yes. So the lam in the word Allah has a shadda. So you're saying it twice either way. This is not about whether you say it twice or one time or whatever, right? This is about the way that you're saying it. Are you saying it with thickness or with thinness? For example, if I say fadlil sukoon, la fadlil thin, but sukoon first, lam with sukoon, and then lam with kasra, with fatha. Fadlil la, right? In both cases, there's a shadda. So we read lam with sukoon first, lam with fatha second, because there's a shadda on the lam and a fatha, right? Fadlil la. But it's about whether we say fadlil or whether we say fadlul. It's about the sound. It's not about whether we're applying the shadda. Applying the shadda, we have to apply the shadda. There's a shadda on the word, on the letter.
I think basically maybe
It's
the
it.
difference between the thin and thick is when you close more, but the other your lips is
The vague smile is the thin, and then the opening of the mouth, making sure it's open, that's the thickness. Yes. So it's not related to the shadda at all.
the government and not the way you presented that was good. It was sticking in our mind because you broke it down to the two hamza and we canceled the two hamza and we say it as a kasra.
Yes. You remove the sukoon. Yes. Qawmanillahu.
There was no two sukun. We had canceled the two sukun.
No. You don't cancel both sukoon. You cancel the first one.
Both of them, and if we add the kasra under the
The noon of the tanween. Yes. On the noon of the tanween, you put a kasra instead of the standard sukoon. Qawmanil, ni.
On ma, man, if you just say ma, not read the tanween, so it becomes qawman nar. So that's not
You can't say it. Yeah, you can't say qawman nar, right? Or you say like qawman nar, pause, right?
Yeah.
So you're not properly reading. So you say qawma ni. قوما النار. Right? Okay. Let's try to do one more before the pizza comes. I think Brother Ali.
This is lesson 9 of Makharij and Sifat series. In this lesson, we'll tackle the letter Noon, how to pronounce it properly, and what are the most common mistakes related to it. Noon is another letter pronounced from the edge of the tongue. The edge of the tongue is that highlighted area. So now, how is Noon pronounced? In order to pronounce Noon properly, you need to perform two actions. One action using your tongue, and the other action through your nasal cavity. So let's start with the first one. When pronouncing Noon, the edge of the tongue should be touching and making full contact with the alveolar ridge. So with full contact, I mean that there is no gap between the tongue and the contact area on the alveolar ridge. The alveolar ridge is that bony part behind your front teeth. But where exactly should the edge of the tongue be? Where on the alveolar ridge? Well, positioning the Noon should be lower than the position of Lam, which is something that we discussed last lesson. So, in other words, Noon is closer to the upper front teeth and the outside of the mouth than the position of Lam. It is not the same position as Lam, but it is slightly in front of its makhraj. So first Lam and then Noon. So this first movement represents half of the sound of Noon. The other half is performed through the second action, which is the nasal cavity. All what you have to do is letting air out through your nasal cavity. And this sound comes...
So this is notorious for most people, right? Most people like struggle a lot with figuring out what the nasal sound is. It's just making sure that like air passes
from the nasal cavity is then called. All what you have to do is letting air out through your nasal cavity. And this sound coming from the nasal cavity is then called ghun, which then represents the second half of the sound of Noon. An. In order to make sure that you are getting both movements right, especially the second one, try performing Noon while blocking your nostrils. If the sound is muffled and indistinguishable, then you're performing it correctly.
Block your nose. Let it say Noon.
Which means that normally there is air coming out of your nostrils, and now you're blocking it, the sound doesn't come out properly. Here are some examples for Noon in context.
Now try to say like block your nose and try to say like ab. There's no issue, right? But try to block your nose and say an. You feel like no, there's something wrong here because the air that was supposed to be coming out of your nose is blocked, so the letter is not being pronounced properly.
Out properly.
Noon is sukoon, so that the tongue is touching the palate to make the sound.
A little bit further forward, right? A little bit more forward than the lam.
Yeah, but then the tongue has to get released from the palate to complete the sound, or not necessarily?
La, yeah. You can say like al, right? So it depends. Like if you're saying la, if you don't release, you're gonna say al. You have to, in order to say the la, the fatha, you have to release, right? La, right? But if it's sukoon, then al, I'm not releasing. It's still stuck there, right? Al-ladhina. Now, when I reached the la of ladhina, I moved. But as far as the lam of al, I'm not moving. It's still up there, right? So it depends on the harakah, or lack of a harakah, which is what the sukoon is.
Here are some examples for Noon in context. Yanhaun, yadhun, Noon. Now, what are the most common mistakes for Noon? The first mistake is when Noon comes at the end of words, and how much ghunna is given to that Noon. The mistake is then either giving too much or too little ghunna, which then contributes to how clear the Noon is at the end of the word. If it is too little, it is going to sound like this. Nasta'een. Nasta'een. And if it is too much, it is going to sound like this. Yanhaun. Yanhaun. While it should be somewhere in between, where you show the Noon as ghunna without extending or exaggerating the sound. Nasta'een. The next common mistake is performing qalqala, the Noon and its ghunna, without extending or exaggerating the sound. Nasta'een. The next common mistake.
So, nasta'een. As long as the ghunna sound You can hear it. You can actually like even feel it in your nose, right? Nasta'in, not or right? Nasta'in. Most people say nasta'in, nasta'in, right? So part of it is, focusing on the air that's coming out of your nose. Nasta'in, nasta'in. Okay? Just make sure that you're aware that the ghunna is part of the noon, right? Like it's part of saying the noon correctly, right?
If the nose is blocked, what can you do?
You wait until you get better.
Mistake is performing qalqala, which happens when noon is in the middle of a word and it has sukoon. This mistake is very common, especially in Surah Al-Fatiha, in this word. أنعمت صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم. And that is a mistake.
Yes, that's a mistake, okay? Ne, that's incorrect, right?
Should sound like this. أنعمت أنعمت. The last mistake is making noon a full mouth letter when followed by a full mouth letter. Like in this word, for example. نظر نظن. So here the noon is followed by the, a full mouth letter. But the noon is still an empty mouth letter. It should not be full mouth at all, and it should sound like this. نظن نور. Finally, and as usual, if you heard a common mistake or a certain difficulty about today's letter, let us know in the comments below. Thanks for
Okay, so Sister Yusuf was saying that the sukoon, I think, Sister, you asked the question? She probably told you already, but let me tell everybody else, right? So sukoon is technically 0 units, but because it is always joined with the previous letter, with its short vowel, then both make 1 unit, okay? So we never say b alone, right? We say, for example, ab, right? So the letter with the sukoon, the ba, ab, always joins the previous sound, and together they make 1 unit. So technically it is 0 units then, right? Because it's just joining the previous letter in order to take in its unit.
watching.
So inshallah, this is we're gonna take a pause because Brother Ali bought pizza. I think he bought pizza for everyone. I'm not sure. Sayyid Isam just said to go, so it's here. Yeah. So, and then we'll pray inshallah after that, and then that'll be it. Yes, inshallah.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala
Can you contribute to the pizza?
Brother Ali, I didn't even know there was pizza. So Brother Ali as a chair, he's the one who brought it, so you can talk to him inshallah. Yes.
Please come back so you can have some pizza.
So the brothers brought some pizza. It's outside if you're interested.
تعال تعال هلا رح اشويك واكلك ايه؟ Which carpet?
For the ladies, we need to connection here. Let's go in the back. So they can have connection here with us. You just inform them. It's a gap. We inform them about the connection. الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر والله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد أشهد أن عليا ولي الله اللهم صل على محمد وآل أشهد أن عليا حجة الله اللهم صل على محمد حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطاهرين صلوات اللهم صل على
Sisters, there's a card right where this chair is, and that's where the line starts.